Virgo, I'm going to stop you right there. I don't manipulate emotions. I don't try to make you cry with dramatic predictions. I don't create false urgency with incomplete titles. What I will do is talk honestly about transformation, about moments that shift everything, about the kind of news, internal or external, that genuinely alters your trajectory. Not to make you emotional, to make you aware. Um, let's get into what's actually happening. Big shifts don't always announce themselves with trumpets. Sometimes they arrive quietly, almost mundane in their initial presentation. A conversation that seems ordinary until you realize it changed everything. A realization that hits you in the middle of Tuesday afternoon while you're doing something completely unrelated. A piece of information that slots into place, and suddenly the entire picture looks different. And you won't necessarily cry. You might, but you might also just stop, breathe differently, feel your entire center of gravity relocate itself. Because jaw dropping isn't always about drama, it's about significance, about something landing that fundamentally alters how you understand your situation, your options, your path forward. And something like that, something with that weight, it's building in your field. Have you been sensing that something fundamental is about to shift? Notice if there's been a quality of anticipation you can't quite name, because here's what I'm actually tracking. There's information approaching, knowledge you don't currently have, understanding that's going to change how you see something you've been looking at all along. Maybe it's about another person learning something about their situation, their choices, their reality that reframes your entire relationship with them. Not necessarily negative information, just true information that you didn't have access to before. Maybe it's about a situation you've been in, getting clarity about factors you weren't aware of, understanding context you were missing, seeing the full picture when you've been operating with only fragments. Maybe it's about yourself, breakthrough in understanding your own patterns, recognition of something you've been avoiding seeing, integration of truth you've been keeping at arm's length. Whatever the specific content, the pattern is the same. You're moving from not knowing to knowing. And that movement, that shift in what you can see, it's going to change everything downstream from it. Which category feels most resonant information about others, about situations, or about yourself? Let your gut answer before your mind does. Because let me be clear about what jaw dropping actually indicates. It's not just surprising, it's not just unexpected. It's reality reorganizing. It's the kind of information that makes you reassess, reinterpret, reconsider everything you thought you understood. And that reassessment, it's disorienting. Even when the news is ultimately positive, even when it opens doors rather than closing them, even when it liberates rather than constrains, because humans like coherence. We like our understanding of reality to be stable. We invest in narratives about how things are, who people are, what's possible and what's not. And when information arrives that contradicts those narratives, when what we thought we knew turns out to be incomplete or inaccurate, it shakes us, creates that jaw drop moment, that pause where we're taking in new reality and trying to integrate it with old understanding. So if this is coming, if information that reorganizes reality is approaching, don't expect it to feel comfortable. Don't expect smooth transition from old understanding to new. Expect disruption. Expect the disorientation that comes with seeing clearly what you were seeing through distortion before. Are you prepared for your understanding of reality to shift significantly? Check whether that possibility creates resistance in you, because I want to address the try not to cry framing. Crying isn't weakness. Strong emotion isn't something to resist or be ashamed of. If information arrives that creates powerful feeling response, if truth lands in ways that break open something you've been holding carefully closed, let yourself feel it. Let the tears come if they want to come. Let the emotion move through you instead of trying to contain or control it. Because sometimes the jaw-dropping news is devastating. Sometimes it's grief-inducing. Sometimes it confirms losses you were hoping weren't real or reveals betrayals you were trying not to see. And if that's what this is, if the information approaching is painful, you're allowed to be wrecked by it. You're allowed to need time to process. You're allowed to feel the full weight of difficult truth. But sometimes the jaw-dropping news is beautiful. Sometimes it's relief-inducing. Sometimes it opens possibilities you'd given up on or resolves situations you thought were permanent. And if that's what this is, if the information approaching is liberating, you're allowed to cry from joy. You're allowed to feel overwhelmed by gratitude. You're allowed to be moved by the magnitude of what's shifting. Either way, emotion isn't the problem. Emotion is just information about what matters to you. Let it be there. What are you actually afraid the news might be? Name your fear if you can access it. Because here's what might actually be happening in different scenarios. Scenario 1. Someone you care about is going to share something with you. Something vulnerable. Something they've been carrying alone. Something that shifts how you understand them or their situation. And your response to that, sharing how you receive their truth, how you handle their vulnerability, whether you can hold space for what they're revealing without making it about you, that matters enormously. That determines whether they were right to trust you with this, whether the sharing deepens connection or creates distance. Scenario 2, you're going to discover something through investigation or accident or someone else revealing it. Information that was being kept from you, intentionally or not, that changes how you understand what's been happening. And your response to that discovery, whether you can integrate it without immediately reacting, whether you can assess its implications before making decisions, whether you can distinguish between the information itself and the feelings it activates, that determines what happens next. Whether you navigate the revelation skillfully or whether you make it worse through reactive choices. Scenario 3, you're going to realize something. Internal breakthrough, pattern recognition, truth about yourself or your situation that's been trying to surface but that you've been keeping submerged, and your response to that realization, whether you can actually let it change you, whether you can act on the understanding instead of just acknowledging and then dismissing it, whether you can tolerate the discomfort of seeing clearly what you were avoiding. That determines whether insight becomes transformation or just remains interesting observation that doesn't change anything, which scenario feels most probable for your situation. Trust your first instinct, because I need to talk about what happens after the jaw drops. The initial impact, the shock, the emotion, the moment of, oh my God, that passes relatively quickly, actually. The acute phase of strong feeling usually doesn't last that long. What lasts is the integration, the process of reorganizing your understanding to accommodate new information, the work of figuring out what this means for how you move forward. And that process, it's not dramatic, it's not crying and jaw-dropping, it's just thinking differently, seeing situations through different lens, making different choices because your understanding of reality has shifted. So the news itself might be momentarily overwhelming, but what actually matters is what you do with it over the days and weeks that follow. Do you let it change you? Do you act on new understanding? Do you adjust your life to align with what you now know that you didn't know before? Or do you just feel intensely for a moment and then go back to operating from old paradigm because that's more comfortable? The first option is growth. The second is entertainment. Choose consciously. Can you commit to actually integrating whatever information arrives? Decide now before you're in the emotional intensity of the moment. Because here's something else worth considering. What if the jaw-dropping news isn't a single piece of information? What if it's multiple revelations that happen in quick succession? What if it's a cascade of truth that keeps unfolding over days or weeks? Because sometimes that's how major shifts happen. Not through one big moment, but through series of realizations, revelations, information points that accumulate into comprehensive restructuring of understanding. And if that's what's coming, if this is beginning of period of rapid truth surfacing rather than isolated incident, you're going to need to pace yourself. You're going to need to process one thing before the next arrives. You're going to need to maintain groundedness even as your understanding of reality keeps shifting. That's harder than handling single dramatic moment. That requires sustained capacity to integrate, to stay present, to not shut down or become overwhelmed. Do you have that capacity, or do you need to build it? Assess, honestly, because I also want to address what you might be hoping this is. You might be hoping the jaw-dropping news is something specific, something you've been wanting to hear. Someone coming back, opportunity arriving, situation resolving in your favor, and it might be that. I can't tell you it's not, but it might also be something you weren't expecting. Something that shifts your life in direction you weren't oriented toward. Something that's significant without being what you specifically wanted. So stay flexible. Stay open to being surprised by form. Don't be so attached to specific content that you miss the significance of what actually arrives. Because sometimes the most transformative information is the kind we weren't looking for. The kind that redirects us onto better path than we were imagining. The kind that closes doors we were trying to keep open and opens ones we hadn't noticed. Can you receive whatever comes without needing it to match your expectations? Practice that flexibility now, because ultimately, here's what this comes down to. Something significant is approaching. Information, realization, revelation that reorganizes how you understand key aspect of your life. And you can prepare for that by building capacity to receive truth even when it's difficult. Capacity to integrate information that contradicts what you believed. Capacity to stay grounded when reality shifts under your feet. You can't control what the news is. You can't determine whether it's what you want to hear or something entirely different. But you can control how you meet it, whether you receive it with presence or reaction, whether you let it change you or just disturb you temporarily, whether you use it to grow or just to feel things intensely for a moment. That's your power. That's your agency. That's where your work actually is. Not in predicting what's coming, but in being ready to receive whatever arrives with as much integrity and consciousness as you can bring. The jaw-dropping news is coming, or it's already here and you haven't fully registered it yet. Either way, it's real, it's significant, it's gonna matter. So get ready, not by bracing, but by opening. Open your hands, open your mind, open your heart, and let truth land however it needs to land. Then do the work of actually living from that truth. That's all any of us can do when reality refuses to stay hidden anymore. What drops your jaw today becomes your foundation tomorrow. Let it land, then build from there.